welcome to an episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo. So the film that I will be discussing is Hustlers. So Hustlers is a 2019 crime comedy drama film that's based on the New York Magazine's 2015 article, The Hustlers at Score by Jessica Pressler. The film was written and directed by Lorene Scafaria, who's known for films such as Seeking a Friend for the End of the World and The Meddler. The film stars Constance Wu, Jennifer Lopez, and Julia Stiles. Here is the synopsis. Working as a stripper to make ends meet, Destiny's life changes forever when she becomes friends with Ramona, the club's top money earner. Ramona soon shows Destiny how to finagle her way around the wealthy Wall Street clientele who frequent the club. But when the 2008 economic collapse cuts into their profits, the gals and two other dancers devise a daring scheme to take their lives back. So the film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 7, 2019. It was released in theaters on September 13th, 2019. It had a production budget of $20.7 million. In terms of box office, it made over $150.4 million worldwide. It opened at number 2 domestically with over $33.1 million. It was beaten by It Chapter 2. In terms of critical reception, it has a 3.3 rating on Letterboxd. Jennifer Lopez, she won a Satellite Award for Actress in a Supporting Role. At the time of this recording, it is available to stream on Prime Video, Tubi, Plex, and Stars, and is available on demand, so check your local provider. Alright, let's get into the first discovery. So I remember I saw trailers of this movie at the time. I think it was just the one trailer. And I said, yeah, this looks interesting. I would love to check this out. So then I saw that it's going to be showcasing at TIFF, and I was already planning to attend the festival as an industry member. So I was able to go to a screening that was for industry members. It was like in an IMAX room. I believe it was at the Scotiabank Theater in Toronto. And by the time I got there, apparently the screening for Hustlers, it got canceled because of technical issues, which was a bummer. So I had to wait days later until the opening weekend of the film to see it in theaters. I saw it at a Cineplex theater in Scarborough, which was where I was staying at the time, because I was staying at one of my dad's friend's place. And after watching the movie, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's quite fascinating. I was really curious about like the real life story, even though this movie, it has creative liberties. I was just more fascinated by the real life story. But overall, as a movie, I quite enjoyed it. And rewatching it now for the podcast, I find for me it still holds up, even though it has its flaws. I would say it's worthwhile, and I find it's nice. It shows the women as exotic dancers or strippers, where they're really more than that role, which I find is nice than typically how those types of characters are portrayed in film and TV, at least based on what I've seen. So let's get into the highlights. So I want to go to the point where, yes, the strippers or exotic dancers, they're people at the end of the day. It shows that yes, they have like their struggles, not just with their personal lives, but also too with their roles. So the film follows Destiny, played by Constance Wu. She is starting out at the club. It's not her first time as an exotic dancer. She has a prior experience, but she's just starting out at this new club that we see. And she is struggling to fit in as the new girl. And she finds that she has to give tips to her boss, and there was the bouncer she gave tip to, essentially to keep her secure, essentially at the club. And it's quite tough for the character because she wants to provide for her grandmother, and later she has to provide for her daughter Lily when she becomes a single mother. So she's dealing like with all that stuff while trying to figure her way into the club. But eventually she manages to find a friend in Ramona, played by Jennifer Lopez, and they get to spend quite some time together. So Ramona shows Destiny the ropes, essentially, shows her some moves. There was that scene where she's showing Destiny how to use the pole, and then Cardi B as Diamond shows up at one point there. And it's interesting how Destiny's relationship with Ramona unfolds because they become quite close. They even spend time with each other's families throughout the movie. And of course, like when they are doing the scheme, they became quite a pair until like it goes haywire with some of the decisions that Ramona does that threatens their relationship. So I find, yeah, their relationship is quite interesting to see throughout this movie. And I would say with Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez, they had a great chemistry, I would say, um, with their roles and the amount of screen time they have together. And it shows too with this movie that everybody is hustling. Ramona said at one point that the game is rigged in favor of the Wall Street guys. And this movie points out that with the Wall Street guys, at least in the movie, are assholes because they just care about flaunting their wealth, having a great time at the club, as we've seen, like with the different men that they encounter and also too that they scheme from. So I guess, yeah, it sucks, but then with the girls, they decide to do the scheme so that they could have that wealth, which at the end does not work out in their favor. But it shows, yeah, that money is important for the girls. At one point, Destiny, she does a job interview at a retail store, and the manager is asking her if she had any prior retail experience, which she does not. And which reminds me, like when I used to work in retail, that was a hassle trying to like get into retail because you need to have experience, and it's always hard to get experience when most companies don't want to hire you based off lack of experience. But yeah, Destiny essentially has to go through that. I believe this was after the financial crisis in the movie. And when the girls at one point have the money, they flaunt it, obviously. I believe Ramona buys a penthouse at one point. There's a scene where they're purchasing an SUV, and it's funny with that scene. Ramona and Destiny, they play "Gimme More" by Britney Spears as they're dancing inside the van. That moment reminded me of the scene in the movie Exit Wounds when Anthony Anderson and DMX entered the car dealership to buy a car, and the salesman is so annoyed at them. That's a hilarious scene with that one. The girls, they want to have that wealth, but find that it's hard to obtain it because of their backgrounds, their jobs, and all that stuff. So, but they end up going into this life of crime with what Ramona dubs as fishing, where they scheme the men thinking they're having a good time, and they end up drugging them. And I want to say that it's funny that Ramona dubs it as fishing. I mean, yes, it's that's what they're doing. Essentially, they're fishing men out to get their money. But man, that's quite fascinating with how that unfolds throughout the movie, and it seems to work out at first, but then as more become a part of it, it goes haywire essentially, which, no surprise, leads them to spending time in jail. And even though they end up serving time, it it makes you wonder in regards to Destiny and Ramona's relationship. Will they be able to recover? I mean, there is a hint, perhaps, that it's possible that they could reconcile, but I think, as we've seen when they do their interviews with Elizabeth, they're at different points in time of their lives, so I don't know that's going to happen anytime soon, but hey, you never know. So I want to highlight the cast for this movie. The cast is quite stacked in this movie. So we have Constance Wu. She plays Destiny, our protagonist. I first seen her, I believe, in the TV show Fresh Off the Boat. That was a great show at the time I saw it on TV. So, and it's interesting here, I find she's playing a different role. Obviously, she has done notable work since the show, notably with Crazy Rich Asians. But yeah, I find it's interesting, at least for me, to see her in something that's quite different in comparison to Fresh Off the Boat, which was more comedic. And then, of course, we have Jennifer Lopez as Ramona. I would put it high up there in terms of her, not just her performance, but in terms of her movies overall in amongst her filmography. I remember at the time, after when the movie came out, many people, including myself, were quite disappointed that she did not get Oscar nominated, because it seemed like she was in consideration at the time, especially given how that season played out, because she got different nominations and wins, of course, for the role. But yeah, anyways, regardless of that stuff, she did a great job in the movie. Also, too, we have Lily Reinhardt as Annabelle. She was quite interesting in the movie because her character had this running gag where whenever she feels stressed out, she would puke. I guess that's a gag reflex, but that's quite interesting there. And of course, I first recognized her in Riverdale. Used to watch that on Netflix at the time. So this, I would say, is quite the departure for her, at least based on what I've seen. And we have Kiki Palmer. She plays Mercedes in this movie. I mean, as always, it's always fun to watch Kiki Palmer on screen, and this role, I would say, is no exception to that. And we have Julia Stiles. She plays Elizabeth, the reporter that interviews Destiny and Ramona. She was in Save the Last Dance, and with the Jason Bourne movies. I used to watch those movies a lot. She did, I would say, a good job with this role. Also, too, we have Wai Ching Ho. She plays Destiny's grandmother. Now I remember her. She was in the Netflix MCU, as I dub it, where she played the villain Madame Gao, quite the villainous role. And when I first saw this movie, I'm like, oh, she's in this movie, because it's also too quite a departure for her based on what I have seen. So yeah, she did great too, and it's unfortunate with the character passed away in the film. And I liked how with Destiny and Ramona, they were able to come together during the funeral, despite them being on the outs at that point. So that was quite fascinating to see. Also too, Cardi B, as I've mentioned, she plays Diamond, a stripper in this movie. I'm sure Cardi B had a blast, playing this role. Also too, Lizzo is in the movie in a cameo. She plays Liz. Um, even though her role is brief, she was quite fun to watch. Also too, Madeline Brewer, she plays Dawn in the movie. Her character is quite something in this movie. And of course I recognized her from The Handmaid's Tale. I used to watch the earlier seasons of that show, so I find that's quite the departure for her based on what I've seen of her so far. Also too, we have Tracy Lissette. She plays Tracy, one of the strippers in the movie. It's funny, like with the bit she had where apparently, she was told like an ex-boyfriend was trying to reach out to her. And in the dressing room, like she kind of made a big deal, over that essentially. So, but yeah, she was, quite great in the movie. And also too, we have G-Eazy. He's in this movie. He plays Johnny, Destiny's boyfriend slash baby daddy. When I first saw this movie, I was kind of surprised to see him. Like, oh, I'm like, he's in this movie. But with the bit he was, in, like, he was enjoyable to watch. Also, too, we have Frank Wally. He plays the one of the Wall Street assholes, Reese, I believe that's his character's name. And interesting too, because I remember him from, Pulp Fiction. If you remember that scene, he has with, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson. I won't spoil that movie if you have not seen it. But if you, recall that movie, you'll know that scene he has in the movie. But yeah, like he did a great job playing the asshole character essentially in this movie. And then we have, Devin Rattray. He plays, Steven, I believe, who is Destiny's client in the movie, that they have some sort of relationship. Of course, I remember him from the Home Alone movies. He plays Buzz in that one. So for me, I would say it's quite the departure in comparison to that role he has in Home Alone. And, should not forget Usher. Usher is in this movie where he plays himself in a cameo. Um, his cameo is quite fun, where they play Love in This Club in the background as the girls are dancing. And, I want to note that, like, with that song Love in This Club, I remember when that song first came out at the time, I was not in love with the song because it was overplayed like crazy on the radio. But as time went by, like, I decided to revisit the song. I'm like, yeah, this is quite the catchy song. It's not my favorite amongst of Usher's song, but it's quite enjoyable, I would say, with that one. And but yeah, other than that, like the cast, did a great job, I would say, with the performances they gave here. So also too, yeah, this movie has a lot of needle drops. I do have a trivia fact about, this later, but, the notable songs, that they have here. So I already mentioned "Love in This Club," the Usher song. "Give Me More" by Britney Spears. When Destiny and Ramona are in the SUV at the car dealership. And there's two Janet Jackson songs. So there's, "Control" at the beginning when we see, Destiny for the first time, backstage at the club. I guess with that one, I would say is to show that, Destiny, wants to take control of her life despite the struggles that she went through and what she's gonna go through throughout this movie. And then "Miss You Much," which plays, towards the end of the movie when the girls are at the penthouse, dancing. I get I guess that is to show like them having fun and with Destiny reflecting on good times, I suppose. So, but yeah, like this, the song choices are not bad, I would say. And yeah, I totally forgot. Criminal by Fiona Apple. I enjoyed that one when we see Ramona for the first time dancing in the club that impresses Destiny, and which leads to them having their relationship. So that's quite fascinating, I would say. And I do want to note that when one of the new girls that's part of the scheme always carries around this dog with her when she works, which is quite creepy. Makes you wonder, like, how come she doesn't want to hire a dog sitter? But anyways, it was quite funny there, especially too. There was a moment when they were at the club dancing, and they keep showing the shots of the dog watching. I felt bad for that dog, but I guess the dog is used to it, so it is what it is. So let's get into the lowlights. So I feel like with this movie, because it goes through different time periods, I felt as though it could focus on a specific time period. So maybe like when the girls are doing the schemes is when the majority of the movie could be focused on, as opposed to spreading across different time periods from beginning to end, essentially. If this was, let's say, a limited series, maybe the different time periods could have worked, where like each episode focuses on a different event, so to speak. Also, too, when Ramona, this was towards the later half of the movie, she always sticks up for Dawn, and I just wonder why. Because Dawn clearly is unreliable. Destiny dubs her cokehead, essentially. I just don't know why Ramona keeps defending Dawn. It's obvious that Ramona disregards the the red signs that everyone else points out, but I don't know. Or maybe like Ramona was just too focused on getting the money and not worried about everything else, perhaps. So, and yeah, I'm not surprised that Dawn decided to snitch and try to get the other girls to reveal their crimes like on while Dawn is mic'd, but clearly that didn't work. Which made Dawn nervous at that point. So, but yeah, I just question why Ramona was kept sticking up for Dawn. Also too, Destiny mentioned that when Usher showed up at the club, it was her last happy moment, and I just wondered, is that really the case? When she and the girls and their families are at the penthouse spending time together during Christmas, they seem happy. So I don't know if I buy that, unless if, let's say, Destiny was just too preoccupied post post that moment at the club of Usher, maybe. But yeah, I don't know if that was the case where she was truly last happy at the club, but that's what she says. Also too, when Lizzo, we see her character is playing the flute, and that was for me like an eye roll moment, because I was just like, really? Because obviously we know that Lizzo often plays the flute, which she calls Sasha Fierce. And I just wondered, like, really, did we need this? Because I thought the point was to play a different character, not play a version of herself, but it's technically a different character. So I just kind of find that was quite annoying. Even though like she was fun to watch, but just like when she played the flute, I'm just like, no. So let's get into the trivia. So the film was first announced back in February of 2016. Jessica Elbaum, Will Ferrell, and Adam McKay would produce the movie under their Gloria Sanchez Productions banner. And Jennifer Lopez and Elaine Goldsmith Thomas would also produce through their banner, Nayorkan Productions. Apologies if I mispronounced that name. In May of 2016, Annapurna Pictures was announced to co-produce and finance the film with the studios Megan Ellison and Chelsea Barnard as executive producers. But then in October 2018, it was announced that Annapurna dropped the film, with STX Entertainment acquiring distribution rights to the film. Apparently, with Annapurna allegedly dropped the film due to budget concerns. Also, too, upon receiving Lorene Scafaria's script, Gloria Sanchez Productions first had Martin Scorsese in mind to direct, while also considering Adam McKay. Producer Jessica Elbaum stated that their initial approach was to send this to the people that we've seen make this type of movie. And then after Scorsese and other directors passed, the producers ultimately gave Scafaria, who had refused to take on other director projects in hopes of directing Hustlers, and then that became greenlit. And also, too, Jennifer Lopez was Lorene Scafaria's first choice to play Ramona, saying, quote, "As soon as I was done, I realized, oh my god, Ramona is Jennifer Lopez. It has to be her." And as I said, yeah, Jennifer Lopez did a great job, too, and no surprise that she was recognized for this work through the different accolades that she received. And also, too, Lorene Scafaria written Usher in the script without being sure if he would be interested, but then luckily he was, and he even brought his own chain, shades, and jacket from the 2007/2008 time period for the scene. That's quite cool. Lorene Scafaria had the idea to cast Cardi B, who was a former stripper, in the movie, prompting Jennifer Lopez to convince her to join the project. Lopez said, quote, "I know she knew this world better than any of us. I told her she had to do it, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer." That's quite fascinating. The costume designer Mitchell Travers, he talked about his work in an interview with Vanity Fair, saying that, "I knew it had to absolutely floor the audience and let them know that this is not going to be like any movie that they've seen before." He designed the costumes for Jennifer Lopez to showcase the strength and muscle tone she amassed during her pre-Hustlers training. Without running afoul of the film's planned R rating, he dreamed up the diamond bodysuit that was essentially connected by 3 straps. So Travers mentioned, "We did a lot of research and development to find something that could stretch in every direction during Lopez's dance, its performance wear, and really had to work for that sequence. We did a number of fittings on it. It is tailored within an inch of its life. Completely customed for her." And I would say she looked fantastic in that outfit. Also, too, the soundtrack for the film features a list of songs ranging from late 90s R&B, dance music, indie pop, to classical interludes, including Janet Jackson, Fiona Apple, Britney Spears, Lorde, and Frederick Chopin. Scafaria mentioned, "I thought of the film as a musical. The songs themselves were telling a story. Most of the music choices were also written into the script. I had obviously imagined scenes to these songs, and we shot to these songs, but you never know if you're going to get the rights." The music supervisor, Jason Markey, he got artists from Big Sean to Bob Seger to sign off permission to include their songs in the soundtrack. The film deliberately does not feature any songs from catalogs of Jennifer Lopez, Lizzo, or Cardi B. So Markey noted that, quote, "We didn't have a score either. Every song made a statement about the scene." That's interesting. And I do want to note that with the trailer or trailers for Hustlers, they do include the Cardi B song Money. So even though it's not in the film, in a way it's kind of part of the film, but through the marketing. So I do want to note that. And lastly, so Samantha Barbash. So she, I guess, was the influence for Jennifer Lopez's character, Ramona. So she says that with the movie, she wasn't impressed. She said she was impressed with Jennifer. Said she was incredible. Her body looked incredible. She had it down to a T, but it wasn't factual. Apparently, in January 2020, she sued the producers $40 million for defamation and for using her likeness. But then in November 2020, the lawsuit was dismissed. Interesting. Alrighty, so should this movie be rediscovered? And I say absolutely yes. So it's not a perfect movie, obviously, but I would say it's quite fascinating in terms of seeing the life of strippers, essentially, not just on the pole, but off the pole, essentially. And it shows, that money is important, and also too, friendship is important, but when money gets in the way of friendship, it does not work out. So, but hey, maybe Ramona and Destiny could reconcile at some point, but it's probably not going to happen. All right. So that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast. So you can find me on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Linktree at Nomfanelo. You can find the podcast on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Linktree at RD Movies Pod. Visit buymeacoffee.com/RDMoviesPod to support the podcast via donation and look at exclusive posts there. Join the Rediscovered Movies Hub, which is a community group on the official Wix website, which is rdmoviespod.wixsite.com/official, where you can interact with others, share thoughts on the podcast, and more. On Spotify, you can answer the feature poll, leave a comment, and rate the podcast. On Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and Podchaser, you can leave a review and rate the podcast. And you can submit questions, comments, and suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com, or you can fill out the contact form on our Linktree to be featured on a Q&A episode, which will air after the end of the season. All right, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you on the next one.